Biden administration of weaponizing the Justice Department. President Biden insists the department acts independently. Again, we'll have a live hearing from the special counsel investigating President Trump and the classified documents any moment now. We'll get it to you live. Meanwhile, back here in southern Nevada this afternoon, Metro Police investigating a shooting death in the West Valley. The detectives say this happened just after 3:30 near Washington and Valley View. Officers say someone called 911 reporting an intruder in their house and that they'd shot and killed the man. Right now, it is unclear if the victim lived in the home or simply broke in. But if you have any details, please call Crime Stoppers. Right now, traffic is moving once again, as you see there, on I-15 through the resort corridor. But southbound lanes at Flamingo were closed for more than 4 hours this morning. A pedestrian was hit and killed on the freeway. This was the scene earlier this morning. You can see the backups in the investigation. Nevada State Police say the victim was hit at about 5 o'clock this morning while crossing traffic, and he died at the scene. All right, let's talk hockey now. A tough loss for the Vegas Golden Knights last night in the Stanley Cup final as they dropped Game 3 in Florida. But they do still lead the series 2-1. Vegas controlled most of the game. It stayed close on the scoreboard. The Golden Knights took a 2-1 lead on Jonathan Marchessault's power play goal, but the Panthers stuck around. They tied the game late and then won it in overtime. Final score 3-2 Florida. Game 4 is on the road tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. Now, you can show off your support for the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, just keep sending us all those awesome pictures. We've gotten so many of them. We love to see it. Your dogs, your pets, your kids, whatever the case may be. Email them to pics, P-I-X, at 8newsnow.com. You might see them right here on the news. In Carson City, it's a day off for the legislature, but a second special session is not over. Lawmakers still need to debate and then vote on a public financing proposal for the Oakland A's. Earlier this week, as you know, there was hours of public comment up in Carson City. Yesterday, the state Senate held a quick session, but then adjourned. They hammered out some amendments to the $1.5 billion plan. That's how much the stadium would cost for them to move here. $380 million of that would be covered with tax breaks. The legislature plans to revisit the plan and possibly vote as soon as Monday. Also in Carson City, Governor Joe Lombardo signed AB 140, Assembly Bill 140. It officially makes Juneteenth a state holiday. On Twitter, the governor said that he's proud Nevada will recognize this important day on a state and federal level. Tomorrow, speaking of Juneteenth, you can celebrate Juneteenth at The Cookout. It's at the Cambridge Recreation Center from 4 to 7. They'll have food, games, arts and crafts, free haircuts. We have a list of all the Juneteenth events happening around the valley on 8newsnow.com.
We've got a beautiful Friday out there. There's still a little bit of moisture around, and that's why we're seeing some clouds over the mountains. Just a chance for isolated showers across parts of the desert, but that does not include the valley today. We started out with clouds early this morning for the valley, and that kept temperatures just a little bit milder in a lot of neighborhoods. Still had a fair amount of upper 60s.
I'm going to interrupt Sherry there for a second here because the special report is taking place on the indictments released for former President Donald Trump.
Holding a document or record, corruptly concealing a document or record, and concealing a document in a federal investigation, scheme to conceal, and false statements and representations. Now, these historic charges are related to Trump's mishandling of documents. You see now Jack Smith, and we will hear his first remarks on what has been a 14-month-long investigation.
Good afternoon. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, and I invite everyone to read it in full to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. Violations of those laws put our country at risk. Adherence to the rule of law is a bedrock principle of the Department of Justice, and our nation's commitment to the rule of law sets an example for the world. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less. The prosecutors in my office are among the most talented and experienced in the Department of Justice. They have investigated this case hewing to the highest ethical standards, and they will continue to do so as this case proceeds. It's very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused. We very much look forward to presenting our case to a jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida. In conclusion, I would like to thank the dedicated public servants of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with whom my office is conducting this investigation and who work tirelessly every day upholding the rule of law in our country. I'm deeply proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Thank you very much.
Why Florida, sir? Why did you decide to bring the case in Florida?
And there, for the first time, we're hearing from the special counsel Jack Smith and this exhaustive investigation alleging the former president of the United States with a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This 49-page indictment, the special counsel invited everyone to read in its full. And I would also recommend that people read it in its full. It is detailed, specific, and it is alarming in some of the charges that are made, not only against Donald Trump, but also his personal valet. John Dickerson is with us.
The Sphinx talks. I mean, we've seen Jack Smith's face, but not heard him speak. And there's an old expression: the more you talk, the less you have to say. He didn't talk very long because the indictment is so full of the talking that he does. What did he say, though, when he talked? He talked about the scope and gravity, and he founded that on two things: the men and women of of national security and the danger of having this kind of information just floating around. And he talked about the rule of law as the bedrock principle of the liberal democratic order, which America is the example of the world, and then that other bedrock principle, innocent until proven guilty. Short and to the point.
Yeah, Robert, I was struck by this and reading this too. We're talking about America's most important secrets. We're talking about American intelligence that protects our men and women who serve in the military overseas, protects our allies. And the allegation is that there were boxes and boxes full of top secret, classified, confidential information that was left in a ballroom, in a bathroom, in a bedroom, when at a social club, Mar-a-Lago, and were not secure.
What's notable is that the special counsel didn't get into any of the details. Instead, he urged the country to read the document, to read the evidence. The word he used, gravity. There's gravity to this indictment, gravity to the charges facing a former president of the United States. You can't read this indictment, and every page seems to mention intelligence potentially being compromised, foreign allies, foreign adversaries, all of this information stuffed away in bathrooms in Florida, in bedrooms. And the special counsel is someone who's in a long line of special counsels in the United States, and past special counsels have been politicized. Think about Ken Starr. Top investigators like Robert Mueller pulled into the riptide of politics by being terse today, by keeping it just to the facts, having a bit of gravity when he used that word, and talking about how it's important to secure things for the military and intelligence officials. He wants to avoid being politicized by Trump. But good luck with that effort. Trump's already on Truth Social. What's he saying? Jack Smith's wife is, quote, a Trump hater, just as he's a Trump hater. Politics looms over everything here, even if Jack Smith wants to keep this bare bones and by the book.
Catherine Herridge, our senior investigative correspondent, is with us. One of the other noteworthy things, I think, if you read this indictment in its full, is the repeated and repeated opportunities that Donald Trump, his lawyers, and others had to solve this problem. In May of 2021, so he's just out of the White House, right? You leave the White House in January 2021. The National Archives begins to ask him for these documents that they believe are part of the Presidential Records Act. When you are president, you no longer have access to these classified documents. You can request them, but you're not allowed to have them, and certainly Mar-a-Lago is not a secure facility. So they repeatedly ask. He doesn't turn them over. It becomes an issue. I mean, I can't detail the whole document. I invite people to read it. But again, the obstruction then, not only that he instructs his lawyer to obstruct justice, but also aides within his personal office.
And these aren't just run-of-the-mill documents. Based on the special counsel's indictment, 7 of the U.S. intelligence agencies had information that was impacted by this alleged mishandling of classified information, from the CIA to the spy satellite agencies, also to the Defense Department, specifically a memo that detailed attack plans on Iran. This is closely held intelligence within the U.S. government. It was retained improperly. It was not stored in a secure facility. And as you mentioned, I think the heart of the indictment is that there was a willfulness, an alleged willfulness to refuse the return of these governments to a secure location.
And unlike other instances in which people might have had secure or classified documents where it was kind of a mistake or a clerical error, what this indictment shows is a person at the center of the narrative, and that is the former president of the United States, moving the documents around, following them, ordering the lawyers not to talk about them. He has his hands on them either figuratively or literally throughout this document, and that puts him at the center of this. This is not just something that, oh, it was done by a staffer somewhere. And also, you mentioned, Nora, the danger of having this information floating out there. What purpose was this information being put to by the former president? To exercise some vendettas, to show he was right. In other words, that's not what this information is for. This information is to protect the United States from its enemies, and also to protect its allies. It's not to be used for the personal whims of a person who happened to have been president.
And just one further point, if I could, on that, especially with some of these most sensitive documents, the special counsel has the benefit of using the defendant, the former president's own words against him. And in my experience of covering this for 2 decades, it's the words and the testimony of the accused that can be the most powerful to a jury.
You're specifically referencing, and they note this on page 9 of the indictment for those that are following home, the repeated statements that Trump has made as candidate and as president about protecting classified information, including as early as August 18th, 2016, where he said, "In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law," in the words of Donald Trump.
I was just going to say, if we kind of dial back in time, remember this was the height of the 2016 election and the height of the Clinton email controversy, and that she used a private server for government business, and dozens of records that were classified were found on that server. And this was a major campaign point for then candidate Trump, who said, "My White House will be different." And again, using his own words, whether it's on the campaign stump or whether it's on this audio tape about the Pentagon-Iran document. Very powerful evidence.
The question now is, what's next? In the last hour before this press conference, though he didn't take questions, I've been checking in with sources close to Donald Trump's legal team. They had a shakeup today. He got rid, well, 2 lawyers resigned. Jim Trusty and John Rowley. They left the legal team. Now it's being led by a veteran white shoe attorney named Todd Blanche. And based on what CBS News has been hearing from sources with knowledge of the Trump team, Trump is going to argue that he had blanket classification powers. And they believe that regardless of what happens in this case, should it go to trial, they could appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court and make this about privilege questions, about executive privilege. What can a president do and not do when it comes to classified documents? We're also going to see from the political side a real reckoning. This is a crossroads for the Republican Party. If you're a rival or your Speaker Kevin McCarthy, last night maybe you came out with a supportive statement. You hadn't read the indictment. Now you've read it. What are you going to say? Now, many crossroads like this before in the past decade, when Donald Trump has had issues or challenges, the Republicans have rallied around him, and they did that during the FBI search last year. But now he's in the race for the presidency again. People want to beat him. Who's going to step up? Already, former Vice President Mike Pence this week in his announcement has questioned, does Trump even believe in the rule of law? I was there in Iowa with Pence, and I said, why are you doing this now? Pence's reply, it's time. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says Trump is not fit for the presidency. So they're speaking up. Who else?
That's an important point politically, yeah.
Exactly. And Mike Pence and others are talking about character. What kind of character does a president have to have? Well, if all of them are speaking to the idea of character, if you just read through the actions in this indictment and ask any of those candidates running, is that an example of a person with character? And is that the kind of character you would display in the office? And that gets right to the heart of the specific behavior of a former president and whether, as a party, you want to restore that kind of behavior into the White House for 4 more years.
Just a final point on the timeline. I mean, this all seems like it's on a collision course for November of 2024. Special Counsel Jack Smith says he wants a speedy trial, but you know that's relative in a complex case like this. I mean, it's going to bump right up against all of these critical periods like the nomination, the selection.
I just want to take a moment because, Catherine, as you detailed so well from the indictment, these are documents, again, marked top secret, right? That could cause grave damage to the national security.
But some are even
of the
higher
United
than that.
That's
some
right.
Are even higher.
Those documents were in these boxes in the ballroom. Then they were moved from the ballroom. They were in a bathroom. They were in a storage room right near the bar storage room so that the bartenders and others would have access. We knew a Chinese spy was able to access Mar-a-Lago. The Secret Service is not in charge of guarding these documents. They say they did not know that these documents with classified briefings were there at Mar-a-Lago. And again, over and over and over again through this indictment, there is awareness not only by the President of the United States, the former President of the United States, Donald Trump, and his attorneys that this is an issue. Time to return the documents. Get rid of them. You're in a problem. And he repeatedly, according to this indictment, seeks to conceal them, to move them. There are text messages. There are pictures. There is a lot of evidence in this indictment.
Which undermines his claim that he had this blanket power to declassify. Because if he had the blanket power to declassify, he wouldn't be trying to stay one step ahead of anybody who was trying to find out if he had this material, which, based on CBS's reporting and now in the indictment, he even verbally said, this is secret, classified, and suggested he shouldn't have it. So that seems to the president's own case is undermined by the quotes from the president, some of which come from his own lawyer, according to the indictment.
I must say, now, while that case is laid out here and alleged here, the obstruction seems pretty strong. The question is, well, what is in these documents, which I still think we don't know very much about. There are 2 instances alleged in the indictment in which Donald Trump shared information in the documents with others, with people who did not have the authority to look at classified information. One of those instances involves military plans to attack Iran. Just how sensitive is that? How could that cause grave damage to our national security, our military forces, our intelligence operatives?
Well, we don't have independent access to that record, but I know from my experience that the U.S. government, the Defense Department has plans on the shelf, contingency plans, if there's going to be a defensive action or an offensive action. This seems to
And not just in Iran. We have them in North Korea and other places.
Many other adversaries. In this particular case, based on the transcript that we've confirmed here at CBS News, it was a document that was crafted by a very senior person within the Defense Department. He says the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, and he says, look, you know, Milley thinks that I'm the one who wants to attack Iran. It's actually him. What's not clear from the audio tape is whether the former president is holding that document in his hand at that time or describing it. But attack plans for an adversary like Iran would be, in my experience, what they call sensitive, compartmented information. That means it's above top secret. It's close hold, need to know. People are read in and read off of these limited access programs.
And if you've ever been to Mar-a-Lago, I've been there not to have dinner or play golf, but as a
always
reporter.
Working, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully not always. But it's a place you can easily wander around.
Yeah.
If you're there, you can kind of walk into the dining room. Trump has dinner outside. So all these documents stocked in these different rooms, it really presents a challenge for Trump about how is he going to defend having all these documents exposed.
And just to point out, too, this does not only involve, well, we've talked so much about Mar-a-Lago, these pictures, the 2 instances in which Donald Trump is alleged to have shown them to people happened at Bedminster.
That's right.
So,
and they're recorded.
Right, and there are recordings of this. And the second instance is alleged by the indictment. Trump showed a representative of his political action committee who did not possess a security clearance a classified map related to a military operation and told the representative that he should not be showing it to the representative and that the representative should not get too close. Again, the suggestion that the president knew exactly what he was doing and that he shouldn't be showing such a map to this political operative.
Right. A map like that, in my experience, would come from the NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and the reason it's so highly classified is because the granular detail on that map or photograph is an indicator of the kind of capabilities the United States government has, as well as the positioning of our satellites. So this really is a sources and a methods issue as well.
Want to note that today, while in North Carolina, President Biden was asked twice about the indictment against his predecessor, and Mr. Biden said no comment. He also noted that he has not spoken to the Attorney General Merrick Garland about the case. White House aides have told CBS News we should not expect that the president will comment about this today or in the coming days, and that would probably be a wise decision so as not to politicize this matter that is already going to be
further politicized even, yeah.
But he's going to be tested, President Biden, as this unfolds, because it's playing out during his presidency, and presidencies are about living in the times you're in as a leader, and even if you want to avoid it for legal and political reasons, it hovers over. Trump has been an open wound in the Biden presidency since day one. Trump didn't even show up at the inauguration. It happened days after an insurrection. And ever since he took office, Trump has been there, and I hear from my sources close to the president, he hates discussing former President Trump. He doesn't want to talk about him in interviews. He doesn't want to talk about him in private. But now this is playing out inside his own Justice Department. Now, it's the federal government's Justice Department, but he appointed the Attorney General Merrick Garland.
There are clear separation between the Justice
Very
Department
much so.
and the White House. We should note.
Just to pick up on what Bob's saying, and the way that bleeds into it is you have Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, with whom the president just negotiated best as you can in today's environment, a debt ceiling deal, calling this the president's indictment. Okay, that's not saying there are many things you can say as a supporter of Donald Trump. You can say innocent until proven guilty. You can say that's not the man I know. You can say, well, let's wait and see the facts. When you jump all the way to calling this an indictment that comes from the president, you're basically saying this is political. I haven't seen the facts. The speaker hadn't seen the facts, but immediately he said.
But we should also know that that is false. Yes, that is an inaccurate
statement.
statement.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's the whole point
That
of
is
this.
what he said, but it is a false statement. Yes.
It is a false statement, and it's a highly volatile, incredibly dangerous statement that seeks to undermine the process. And if that's immediately where you're going, that gives you a sense of how this has befouled the relationship between the Speaker and the President.
One of the greatest things about America is our justice system. And there is a legal process that will unfold here. You are innocent until proven guilty. There will be a jury in Florida that will listen to this case, a speedy trial, as the special counsel said that he would like. But, John, historically, this moment that we are in, never before in American history has a president or former president faced federal charges, and certainly this grave.
That's right. And your caution is the right one, which is that we're all stewards of this moment. This is an unpredictable moment. It has never happened before, and it's happening in fragile times where people are apt to think the worst of their political enemies. They're apt to think that the protections that you described don't exist. And because they think those things don't exist, they take matters into their own hands. And so this is an incredibly sensitive moment. And the other historical parallel I would mention is, as Catherine was talking, and you look at the way the former president was using this material, it reminds me very much of the reason Richard Nixon taped things. Because when presidents are in office, they want to have a record so that they can say, no, you see, I was right all along. All those smarty pantses in the press, they were saying this, but I have the actual official record here to show you what was really going on. Because they always feel in the job like they're being swamped by, inaccurate information. And that instinct to use this information to prove that you were right is not, it's evidenced by what Donald Trump did is in this indictment, but it's true of many past presidents as well.
This was in many ways avoidable. John Dickerson, Catherine Herridge, Robert Costa, thank you so much. We should note our coverage will continue on CBS News streaming, your local news, and we will have a full wrap-up and analysis tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Norah O'Donnell.
And there you saw a special report, as you mentioned, or as Norah O'Donnell mentioned, from CBS News about the indictments against former President Donald Trump. A lot more on that, of course, all throughout the day. Let's squeeze in a few quick stories, if possible, I believe, here. We're going to talk about NV Energy asking the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to raise rates again. They're requesting to increase rates for all Southern Nevada customers by 3.3%. That story also coming up in later newscasts. That'll do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Help 8 News Now give back as we celebrate our Founders Day all month long. We'll be collecting canned goods for Helping Hands of Vegas Valley. Donate these items today at one of our participating Community Pride locations. Scan this QR code or go to